All right, here we are. Tommy and Brian.
Hello.
We are unmuted. We are slightly less off kilter, but you know what? It's okay. We're a little bit off center today. We'll live with that. The show is Coffee and Crabs. The date is May 17th. As always, I have Brian tell everyone who's watching what the show is about, and then we take it from there.
Coffee and Crabs, a show done here at Techport in the hangar where we talk about anything related to innovation, innovation ideas, and technology from a local perspective, a regional and a national perspective. So here we are. And wherever it goes is where it goes.
And to slightly correct Brian, we are not in a hangar right now.
Yeah, we're not in a hangar.
We were last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. We are in a kitchen area with a hangar behind us.
Right.
But we are in an airport, and we are here at Techport in St. Mary's County. And there are always an infinite number of interesting people around and interesting conversations. I might just go for it and talk about something that we brought up a little bit earlier, but we'll see if we get there.
And we'll have a guest later, too.
Yes.
Our guest later is Dr. Gwen Greene. So we'll bring her on shortly.
Dr. Gwen Greene, she is founder, CEO, and a long title that I'll let her talk about when she joins us at AiTech LLC. I believe it's artificial intelligence. Or is it cybersecurity?
I think it's cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
Well, she'll correct us if we're wrong.
We'll talk to her about cybersecurity and perhaps artificial intelligence when she joins us. But she'll be joining in about 20 or 30 minutes from now. Oh, and she's also an avid bodybuilder.
Yes.
Which so am I. Can't you tell?
I used to be.
Did you?
Well, I never competed, but I played football in college. So I had I was a lot better shape than I am now, let's say.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Where'd you played at?
VMI, Virginia Military Institute. So
that's good. That's real good. Okay. So she'll be joining us later and also talking about balancing having a family and a career, and then a variety of topics. So one thing to mention from the top of the show is the progression of how we go through things is we start on an international, national level. We go down to kind of a regional level, and then we break it down to very kind of in our own backyard.
Right.
So I will kick it off with the national, international level. And I'm going to bring up a topic that Brian suggested because I think our guests can chime in on this later, which is the pipeline hacking in Texas. This hack, which most of you probably have already heard about or you've experienced because you've gone to the gas station and your gas has gone up. I believe what happened is it's not the Keystone Pipeline. It's the Colonial Pipeline, which is a major artery and infrastructure pipeline for gas to the United States.
Well, it's gas in particular to the southeast United States. So
which affects us.
Right. So Louisiana, Mississippi, all the way up to New Jersey.
Right. And that was hacked by a team out of Russia, or that's what they say.
So,
it's what they say. And what they did was they more or less took control of, I believe, about 50% of the pipeline.
Did they take control, or I've heard varying perspectives on it. Some say that the gas was flowing. They didn't, but what they messed with was the price. They couldn't adjust the price, so the pipeline was shut off because people be getting gas for free, is the way I understood it. So I don't know.
Is that really how it's happening?
That's what was told to me.
Really?
I was talking to someone about it. So
that's actually kind of interesting. Okay, so basically, so here was my understanding that there's different spots along the pipeline that in the olden days, probably like 5 years ago, there were humans that were monitoring kind of these meters.
Right.
And they could turn them on and shut them off if they needed to, and they can monitor the price and how much was coming in. And they just kind of outsourced all that to computers.
And that was the problem. The way I understand it was they couldn't meter the price. So the price was like zero, but gas was flowing.
Okay.
So they were like, well, we got to stop this until we can figure this out. And that was what the hack did, the way I understand it. So it didn't interrupt the flow. The flow was actually interrupted by the people. So,
Interesting.
I don't know.
Wow, that gives me a whole new perspective on this. So the hackers were actually just giving people free gas?
Something like that. Yeah.
Man, that's
I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, no, please, but
okay.
this is
So they took
so many perspectives.
So they took control of the pipeline. Let's just say that, or they took some power away from the people that
they meddled with it. Right.
Okay. Then they basically, it's called ransomware. They said, pay us and we'll go away. Okay. So in terms of like innovation and technology, there's two main topics that I wanted to touch here. The first is, can we really outsource everything to computers?
No, we can, but the wise thing is, should we? So it's not can, it's should we outsource everything?
I think the answer is becoming clear. It's no.
Right.
I think what's happened in the last couple decades, we talked about this last week with the microchips. We are just so obsessed with reducing price and costs of businesses that the simple thing to do is just say, we'll replace the human with the computer. But think about this. I have no clue how many people were working along the pipeline, even if it was 20 and they got decent salaries to monitor everything. They outsourced all those people for computer, and then they got hacked, and then they ended up having to pay out millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
You might have just been better off keeping the humans around.
Exactly. In the long run, it's cheaper, right? I mean, you don't have to pay these hackers, to give you control back. And still, it's like a bully, once you...
Oh, they're coming back.
Yeah, they're coming back. They're coming back. It's easy prey. So, but yeah, you certainly can't. I mean, we had some issues with one of our bank accounts, and our bank account, it wasn't a person that created it, was the software that created an issue that actually gave us more money than we should have had in the account.
Seriously?
So yeah, we had more money. And we were talking to a person and they were like, what are you talking about? So they had to actually go in the system and see what had happened. And the computer had a glitch that did something. I'm like,
Yeah, I've heard stories of people who wake up with a lot of money in their bank account, and if you spend it, the government goes after you.
This is not the first time this happened to us.
Are you kidding?
No. It's always on the positive. There was one time we actually had, my wife calls me and says, we had like 3 times the amount of money in our account. And I had called, and this was when I was actually active duty and I was in the military. And so I called dispersing, and they were like, oh no, that's right. It's where it's supposed to be. It turns out the computer had discovered it giving you a wrong algorithm for the area you live. So I was getting paid an old housing allowance. So the computer adjusted it, and it was all automated. It was no person in the loop. It was all automated. The computer detected the issue and realized it was paying me lower than I should have been. Then it corrected it and gave me a lump sum. And there was no humans in the loop until I mentioned it. So that was kind of scary to me.
Yeah, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with technology, and the second thing I wanted to bring up that's related to this is I'm going to go back to a topic that I always talk about, which is cryptocurrency.
Before you say that, though, before you mention cryptocurrency, that's one of the things. If you remind me to talk to Dr. Greene about this, I want to, how do you protect something like this? How do we protect ourselves?
I don't know.
So that's something. That's a question for her. We'll bring her in. So anyway, you can go back to cryptocurrency. So we bring her in.
Okay, so the hackers, the malware group out of Russia, supposedly demanded ransom be paid in cryptocurrency. Now, you might turn on the news and you might see a lot of politicians, and they're all saying, if we didn't have cryptocurrency, stuff like this wouldn't happen.
The currency of criminals.
I'm not sure I see how that makes any sense.
It's kind of like saying, if we didn't have guns, there'd be no murders.
Yeah. I thought back to that. What's the quote? Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Right. People figure out a way to do whatever.
People were taking ransoms before cryptocurrency existed. They were just doing it with cash and U.S. bank accounts. So this narrative that it's now easy for hackers to hack into your account because Bitcoin exists seems a little fishy to me.
Right.
I don't really know why you are seeing cryptocurrencies being attacked right now on two fronts. Front number one is it's the currencies for criminals. Front number two is apparently global warming and all the carbon emissions in the whole world. We can thank cryptocurrency for that.
Right.
And all of a sudden, everybody seems to care a lot about all the computer power that cryptocurrencies are using because they're using all this power and it's putting off all the CO2 into the atmosphere. And everyone seems to really care about Bitcoin now because
that's crazy.
They're saying it's killing the environment. Now, a couple things to be said about that. The first is, you ever seen what a gold mine looks like? You ever seen what an oil field looks like? You ever seen what just about any rare earth mineral manufacturing plant looks like?
Quarry, yeah.
Yeah. They're not exactly good for the environment.
No.
And we've been doing them for, 1,000 years for some of these things?
Oh, yeah.
For gold and for things like that.
And even before all this, I mean, aircraft and cars for the past 100 years, people don't realize.
Oh, my gosh.
Like the aircraft I used to fly was called an E6. And we did the calculations one day. An hour worth of flight time in my aircraft, I could burn the same amount in my truck in 3 years. I could fill up my truck once a week for 3 years and burn what my aircraft burns in an hour. What my aircraft burns in a month, or typical deployments, I could fuel my truck for 300 years.
Oh my God.
So it just shows you. Anyway, that's just kind of an idea of how much and typically we dump fuel. We dump thousands of pounds of fuel when we fly sometimes. So anyway, not to beat up the Navy or the military. I'm just letting you know that we actually, it's a lot of waste.
Go ahead. Okay. How about ships? Not to beat up on the Navy, but let's talk about cargo ships.
Even cargo. There you go. Merchant Marines.
How about chemical plants that until like the 2000s literally were allowed to just take chemicals, and as long as they sprayed them over like kind of like large froths of the ocean, they were allowed to just spray chemicals back into the ocean. As long as they were moving while they did it, right?
And you were so many miles away from land.
You're not allowed to just take them all and dump them all in one place. As long as they're on these like kind of like hose type scenarios, and you're kind of rolling down the ocean and you're just spraying these chemicals into the ocean, that was allowed. Now, this goes to my next point, which is this. For some reason, this narrative of cryptocurrency being for the criminals and also for harming the environment, it seems to have gotten to Elon Musk. Mr. Elon Musk, world famous, extraordinarily brilliant billionaire.
Eccentric.
Love him or hate him. He's always been a fan of cryptocurrency. And last week, he comes out of nowhere, he comes out of left field, and he starts talking about how Bitcoin is killing the environment. Now, if a guy can put people into space, and a guy can basically coat every single rooftop in America with solar panels, and he can build these things that bore under the earth, and he can also come up with these cars that drive themselves.
Also working on a mini submarine when those kids were stranded. And remember that? In
Yes.
Thailand, he was with a submarine.
Yes.
Anyway, guys have lots of money.
So here's my question. Do you think he didn't realize that Bitcoin used lots of computers and lots of electricity when he decided he liked it?
Like you said, love him or hate him, I think he has an ulterior motive. I think there's no way he honestly believes that, Bitcoin is killing the environment no more than anyone else. I mean, he hasn't perfected the electric plane yet, so I'm sure he takes his private jet when he goes and flies or gallivants around the world. So he's not complaining about that.
So here's my theory. Did you know that if we all drove Teslas, if every single one of us in America drove Tesla, our power grid would literally cease to work?
How so?
Well, turns out most people start and end work at the exact same time.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I get your point.
We all came home from work at the exact same time. We all plugged in our electric cars to recharge for our commute the next morning. I got news for everybody. power grid completely goes down.
This is what's really interesting too. I was traveling. I'm not going to mention the place, but I saw a Tesla power station. It was like 4 Tesla power stations with a gas generator powering it.
So where do you think the electricity that goes into your Tesla comes from?
Right.
Okay, I see a lot of Teslas. And by the way, I really like the car from a design and functionality standpoint. But where do you think the electricity that charges the battery inside the Tesla comes from? It comes from coal. It comes from wind. It comes from solar. It comes from nuclear. It comes from natural gas. It comes from all the same places where all the rest of our electricity comes from. And unfortunately, if we all drove electric cars, we're actually going to start putting more CO2 into the environment.
See, that's, being an R&D firm, that's where we talked about having portable solar generators just to augment that. That's one of the things we talked about years ago with our company was having generators that you would, instead of plugging these Teslas into your house, you'd plug them into these solar generators, when you're at work. So the car's charging when you're at work. Obviously, when you get home, the car is not going to be charging because it's going to be nighttime, at that point. But so we were seriously looking at that at one point, having ulterior ways of charging to keep everything green.
All right. So there's a common thread here. All right. You got people hacking the pipeline. People are blaming cryptocurrency for the hacking to take place. Then there's this new narrative that cryptocurrency is the thing that's killing the environment. Then you have perhaps the world's most famous billionaire who last week loved Bitcoin, this week starting to act like he hates it. What's going on here?
I think there's something we're not seeing. I think whenever you look at the news, not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, you have to look at what's really going on. I think there's something that the average person, you have to look through it. The news, what's getting reported and what these people are doing may seem odd to us, but I think there's something we're not getting. There's a crucial piece, that the average person is not getting.
So here's my 2 cents. And it has to do with innovation and it has to do with creativity and ideas. I think the federal government and lobbyists are getting in the way. Okay? I think lobbying on Capitol Hill for big banking really doesn't like cryptocurrency. Why? Because it's messing with their business model.
Right.
So what are they doing? They are painting it as the currency of criminals, and they're starting to talk about something that the current president really cares about, which is the environment.
Right.
And all of a sudden, cryptocurrency is killing the environment. And all of a sudden, the world's most eccentric billionaire who does a lot of business with the federal government, a lot, SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City,
power walls.
Guess who their biggest customers are? The government. I think what's happening is the environment is a key issue right now, and that's great, and I support it, and I love the fact that we're caring about the environment. However, I think when people like Elon Musk start to get muzzled and they start to be tamped down because of the things that they're working on, which may be creative or may be innovative, because they're not really falling in line, I think we have a problem.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. That, whenever there's any kind of spike in innovation, there's always meddling from bureaucrats and the government that kind of screw things up. And we see it on a local level as well here too. Because I never honestly thought electric cars would come to fruition. I know the potential was always there, but how would that affect the oil companies? So you're probably right. He probably got a pass to make these cars, provided he scratches their back as well. These lobbyists and these people in Congress.
It's just so you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Yeah.
And if you're Elon Musk and you love to tell the truth and you love to be out in the open and you love to tell everybody exactly what you're thinking and you love to be known as the guy that just tells it like it is, people start to question you when you change your mind 48 hours later and you do a complete 180. They tend to think that maybe something is strange.
Right.
Now, that is what I wanted to pose to everybody, is the idea that, yes, we're talking about pipelines and we're talking about hacking and we're talking about cryptocurrency and Tesla, but the real underlying thread here is simple. If you really want people to be creative, you have to look much deeper into what some of the obstacles are. And you brought that up. You have to think about what are the true motives. It might seem weird from the outside, but there's clearly something that's happening on the inside.
Right.
And this is unfortunate because right when people were starting to adopt something that could really start to make a difference, all of a sudden they're doing backpedaling. Now, my 2 cents, I guess cents would be American dollars. My 2 cents is cryptocurrencies aren't going anywhere.
No.
Just because Elon Musk decided he wanted to bow a little bit to some local lobbying, they're not going away.
I think cryptocurrency is here to stay. I think we're seeing the wild, wild west here. It's just starting. There's no telling where it's going to go. It's like we talked about before, how some of these currencies have different processes or different procedures, how
or functions.
Functions. That's what I'm looking for. You were saying Ethereum is actually used as you can explain
it's a smart contract platform. So, I mean, you can attack it. You can attack cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin for being literally just, hey, this is a currency. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Sure, go for that. But when you start to go after things like Ethereum, you're really starting to go after changes in the way that we can do business.
Right.
And maybe that's also part of the problem. Okay. So look a little deeper. How about blaming the people who actually hacked the pipeline?
Right.
Rather than the cryptocurrency that caused it. And don't take everything at face value for what the news tells you, right?
Well, back to Elon Musk, and and I hate to put it like this, he seems a little sneaky, a little bit shady. Only because if you remember when what was happening in Florida, it was a hurricane when a few years back when all the Floridians had to leave, and he sent a code to unlock the Teslas and give them like more mileage.
What?
Remember that? You don't remember that?
I do not remember that.
I think it was a hurricane. Something happened in Florida a while back. It escapes me. But I do remember Elon Musk.
You mean to make the batteries work longer?
Yes, you can go further. He unlocked it. And
you got to be kidding me.
No, look it up. Look it up. If you don't believe me, look it up. Because a friend of mine I used to fly with years ago, we were talking about that. And because he was going to get a Tesla. And he talked about it. He's like, that's sneaky. How dare you release a product and basically govern it, and it's governed down, which I get,
So, okay, a restrictor. Almost.
Yeah, it's governed, but when it comes to range of an electric car, you just sit in a code and unlock them, and now they get an extra 50 miles or whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was, and I was like, I'll never buy one of those.
Well, what the excuse would be is it would be it was in development and we didn't want to do it unless we absolutely had to or something like that.
I thought you should have known that, man.
I had no idea about that. Look, the thing is I do, as much as I'm giving this guy a hard time, I do respect what he does.
Sure.
And so there's something to be said about the fact that I believe he has almost perfected the public-private partnership.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody out there, this isn't a startup. Okay. This is a public-private partnership. All of the things that he does. Maybe the only true startup that he ever founded was PayPal.
PayPal was a startup.
That was a startup.
But what this proves, though, with enough money, you can do whatever. Yeah,
but so it is possible for public-private partnerships to flourish.
Yes.
And I was telling someone the other day about this, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, for me, like today, like growing up as a kid and being an adult now." I've always known Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman to be a quasi-government public-private partnership. Yeah. Okay. But there was a time when they were brand new businesses.
Yep.
And they were just getting into that. And they were kind of, they were aviation companies and they were just getting into that. And I said, well, when my daughter grows up and she's in her 30s, she'll probably look at SpaceX the way that I look at Lockheed Martin.
Right.
And she'll go, not that I don't know what she'll do with her life, but the point is, right now we treat all these Elon Musk companies as if they're these Silicon Valley startups.
Right.
30 years from now, we're all going to know, no, this is a public-private partnership. You don't put people on the moon unless you're working with NASA.
That's right.
it's fundamentals here. Enough of that. So we're gonna keep moving on. Hopefully our guest joins us here soon. If not, we're gonna truck through this, but we'll figure it out. All right. So on a regional level, just one real quick update to make everybody aware of. We did have an event here tomorrow between TEDCO and TechPort for propelling rural innovation. That has been canceled. I had to cancel it. We're hoping that we reschedule it sometime in the future. And the idea is to have discussions with people like Brian, who are small business owners that are in rural Maryland or even just rural America,
Right.
who live in the community as well. And what are things that we can do to support them from a public-private partnership standpoint? And Troy, he's a new CEO at TEDCO, and I've heard nothing but good things about him.
Troy Stovall.
Stovall?
Yeah.
Stovall. And he is, I give this guy credit. He has done more one-on-one conversations and interviews with people than anyone I've ever seen.
Right.
He's done a great job to get out there to talk to people. Hopefully one of these days he doesn't have to only do these interviews and he can actually do some work. I feel bad for him.
Well, what I really hope is TEDCO kind of spreads to other states, not, because TEDCO is Maryland specific,
Yeah.
but programs like TEDCO. I've talked with other inventors and some of my customers live in other states, and I tell them about the programs we have, and they're like, we don't have anything like TEDCO in our state.
Really?
So no, very few states, like for instance, Oklahoma doesn't have anything like a TEDCO. They have SBDC and everything else like
Right.
we all have. But, that idea, of a state agency that can help small businesses and innovators, that would be fantastic. So if that could spread, I don't know how to do that, but that's something I'd like to talk to Mr. Stovall about.
Well, two more things to highlight are, one, very good friend of mine, Bill Collier. I know that he just got promoted to run the TEDCO Seed Grant Fund. And I know that he's someone that is part of a new round of hiring at TEDCO. I know a lot of new people are working there now. Kim Azingo is another one that works there.
You know what? I think we should back up a little bit. I assume everyone knows what TEDCO is, right?
No, actually, you know what? Go ahead.
TEDCO, Maryland Technology and Development Office, right? Corporation, right. So it's a state-funded organization that helps small innovation type businesses, startups and things like that. They've provided a lot of funding for many businesses here in the state of Maryland. And that's what I talk about, TEDCO should spread and to have similar agencies in other states. Some states do, but some states don't. So again, I have customers and clients in different states, and they don't have the luxury we have here in Maryland. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good explanation. And I know that over the years, it's been heavily supported by the state.
Yep.
And again, that's another example. I didn't intend for this to be the theme, but it is another example of a public-private partnership. But they've taken on a role, I know, in the last 12 months to try, instead of just trying to push what they think people want, they've really put in effort to ask people what they need.
Right.
And so again, to my point, my friend Bill Collier, I know he's always asking me, are there people in the rural parts of the state that are interested in seed grant money, or seed investment funding? Also, another gentleman who just joined TEDCO used to be a board member of Southern Maryland Loves You. His name is Alan Alfano. And so he was part of Southern Maryland Loves You for about a year, which is a nonprofit that we started here at TechPort. He has recently resigned from the board, and he's actually going to be running the Southern Maryland part of TEDCO.
Right.
And so they're really doing their best to get out into the community.
And one point I wanted to make about rural, why they are pushing rural. Typically in most states, Maryland, no stranger as well, is most of the money from states go to the populated areas.
Yeah.
Look at a state like California. A lot of the Northern Californians are upset because most of the money goes down to LA, San Francisco, those type areas. But the people up in Northern California, rural areas, typically don't get money. And it's like that, I'm from Virginia originally, and most of the money goes to Tidewater or Northern Virginia. But what about the people in the western part of the state? So that's why there's a huge rural push that's being implemented by most states, state programs, to get money to those organizations who are in rural areas, because there are some good technological things happening in those areas too, from farms to oyster farms to just drones that are happening in rural areas.
I mean, to give a little bit of credit to people like you just said in California, I mean, the reality is money does flow to where people live. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the cynical reason is because there's more people who vote. The less cynical version is there's more of a concentration of people who pay taxes.
Sure.
Right. So if your profit center is your large city, because they're that's where most of the tax revenue is coming from, okay, you got to serve the city. But one thing that I have noticed is a lot more people are moving to the suburbs and to the rural areas.
Right.
So from a strictly business standpoint, if you're running a state, if you're a governor, you're a county commissioner, you should start looking at your more rural areas because a larger portion of your tax base is moving there.
Right.
And they're probably thinking of solving problems in different ways.
Right.
So anyway, TEDCO, we're sorry that we couldn't do our event tomorrow. Hopefully people are listening to this, learn something. Thank you for explaining TEDCO. That's a great point. I should not have assumed that anyone was aware. So the other thing to highlight in terms of things that actually happened down here locally are we had what I thought was a very, very successful Hypersonic Symposium last week.
Yes.
I know you got to watch some of it.
Mm-hmm.
We had about 20 people live. People were spread out. And then the rest of it was put onto a online forum. And this was for people from Patuxent River who work in hypersonics, but also people from the University of Maryland who work in hypersonics.
Right.
Huge shout out to Maureen Thomas from Topaz Consulting. One, for running the event, but two, for really pushing for us to have this event. And the reason that I say that is this. I'm a culprit of this as well. Oftentimes we host events that are very similar in nature. We like to talk about things that we know a lot about.
Right.
And we end up just doing the same event over and over and over again, where I see something that somebody else did and maybe we do something that's extremely similar. Hypersonics is probably the Hypersonic Symposium that they had is probably one of the most interesting and unique events that I've seen down here in a long, long time.
Right.
For some reason, we just haven't talked about hypersonics. And hypersonics, essentially, is anything that goes faster than the speed of sound.
Right.
Okay. That's my layman's definition. Yes, it could be missiles, but it could also be communication rockets. It could be rockets that take people to space. It could be, I don't know, cars sometimes go faster than the speed of sound.
Right. Projectiles.
Anything.
Right.
But here's what people need to know. We do have experts in hypersonics in Maryland. I know for a fact that the Department of Commerce for Maryland is interested in hypersonics.
Right.
Guess what? We have that here in Southern Maryland. We might not have a launch pad and we might not be sending rockets into space, at least that I know of.
Not from here.
Probably not from here. But we do have experts.
Right.
And the university has experts as well. And it was kind of funny as I watched this come together. And I'm going to keep going here because our guest isn't with us yet. But as I watched this come together, I'm watching the hypersonics PhDs from the university, and then the hypersonics PhDs from the base. We get them on the phone together, and they're like, "Oh, you exist? Yes, I exist. Oh, you exist? Of course, I exist.
Right.
How come we haven't been talking to each other?
Talking, right?
I mean, but that's like a story as old as time.
But that's the beauty of what we do here at TechPort is we bring those ideas together. Those people who hadn't been talking didn't realize I didn't realize it either. I'm from this area. Well, not from this area, but I spent a good portion of my adulthood here on the base, and I didn't realize there was a presence here with hypersonics. Mm-hmm. So it's absolutely fantastic, and kudos to Maureen for putting this together. And again, that's what we do at TechPort. We bring innovation and technology together, from civilians to government to whatever.
Two things. Number one, I'm told they're going to have another one.
Okay.
The next one will be a little more open to the public.
Okay.
This one was a little more closed because of COVID and because of those restrictions. We literally could only have the people that were experts in the field.
Right.
That we hit our number of 20 and we couldn't go any higher. So that's number one. Number two is this. There are 40,000 people that work inside the base. They don't all work on the same thing.
Right.
So open your perspective
Your paradigm
of what's possible, not only here in Southern Maryland, but in your community. You might hear about the same things over and over and over again, but turns out there's probably experts doing things in areas that you would never imagine.
Right.
And that's what I learned from this.
I agree. One of the things, how it's a success. I was talking to Maureen this weekend about that. She ended up leaving the meeting, but she said she let them stay, and they were here for hours, conversing. So I thought that was fantastic that these people found each other
awesome.
and had some kind of synergy going on with their efforts. So I thought that was fantastic.
Footnote to all this: one of the things that stood in the way was something that people believed to be true that wasn't. And this is another lesson to everybody. The belief was that the university and the Navy couldn't do top secret research together.
Right.
Now, why did they believe this? Because 20 years ago, that was true.
Right.
But for 20 years, no one thought to ask if that had changed. So again, my nugget or my lesson from all of this, besides the fact that there are very interesting things out there, you just have to look for them. My next nugget is don't assume anything. Because as soon as they found out that they were allowed to do research together, it took on a whole new dynamic.
Right.
And this is true with any type of innovation. And Brian knows that, so he doesn't.
Yeah, that's the thing about innovation. Sometimes you have to open your mind and do different things. Even if there wasn't an avenue for them to collaborate, maybe they should have created one, but it did exist. But
everyone, people are busy. I
Sure.
get it. Life's busy. Everyone's busy. And sometimes it just takes someone who doesn't know anything about a topic to bring people together.
Right.
Now, Maureen, I'll throw myself under the bus here. I don't know anything about hypersonics, but that didn't stop us from putting these people together.
Absolutely.
So just because you're not an expert at something doesn't mean you can't at least try to bring the others that are.
I know this much.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. All right. So in this vein, and it looks like we're gonna have to bring our guest back another time. But here's the last topic for today, and it's topical to what we're talking about. Okay, so the show that we're doing right now today is in Techport. Okay, now the show will go on. Not to sound like an old cheesy Hollywood movie, the show will go on. However, this will be our last Crabs and Coffee and Crabs. I got it right. Inside this building.
Right.
So we are moving on to a new studio because there are some transitions taking place here at Techport. There will be some new tenants. Some of our beloved tenants will be moving on. There'll be some different things happening here in the building. Hopefully some things that are very similar to what we've grown accustomed to. However, for this show, this beautiful show right here, we will be moving studios. So I am hoping that our studio will be ready in the next 2 weeks. I'm not certain that it will be, but one way or another, we're going to figure out a way to do this, even if we just broadcast from a park or something like that.
Right. We'll keep going.
Which is actually kind of an interesting idea now.
We can do that. I guess I have land. We can do it on my property. I don't care.
You could do it at like a space museum or something.
Ooh, that would be cool.
I feel like we could really do this anywhere as long as we have an internet connection.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's been great, and I've personally had an amazing time here at Techport, and we've been able to do a lot of amazing things. I got to meet, well, actually I already knew you. I got to know people better, like Brian, who's been an awesome help. And from the local standpoint, that is a big, that's a big story, something that I wanted to share with everybody. And so again, we talked about it, but Maureen, thank you for helping us put this show together. We'll figure out a way to keep going and broadcasting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
no, just because we're not going to be here doesn't mean the innovation stops. We're going to continue to be innovating. We're still going to be doing new and novel and high-tech things.
Right.
The group here within Techport. So,
Right.
but won't be in this building.
Right.
But we're going to continue to do what we want to hear from you, your thoughts, and so we're going to keep moving forward.
My last cheesy tidbit is this: the nature of startups and innovation is you gotta change all the time.
Yep.
You gotta pivot. You gotta literally change your environment, either by choice or by necessity. And so for me, I see this as actually kind of an opportunity. Kind of probably force us to grow a little bit.
Yep.
I know that when COVID hit, I never in a million years did I think I'd be doing so many live television shows, but here we are. And I think it could be a really good thing. And besides that, we do thank our guest for at least attempting to join us today. We will bring her back.
Yeah.
Dr. Gwen Greene. I want to talk to her about her fitness more than anything, but we'll figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, and I certainly want to talk to her about the hack, the hack
Yeah,
and the cybersecurity side of it. And I'm curious about the fitness thing too. As a mom, I think she's a mom of 3 and still finding the time to bodybuild. Oh my God, it's amazing. When I had my first kid, I kind of fell off the wagon. I'm like, I got so many things in the fire. But the fact that she still moves on, PhD, a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, and still maintains the time to do it. That my hat off to you.
What is it like?
Fantastic.
Like the busier you are, the more you get done, or something. It's like
we used to always say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. So, all right. So, thank you, Dr. Greene. We'll get you on here. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody else. And we will be back in 2 weeks. We'll see where it is, but we'll make it interesting. So,
yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.